Welcome back, everybody. It was a big day for the Supreme Court today, hearing not just one but two cases challenging President Biden's student loan forgiveness program. That program has been so important for the Biden administration. And here to break down what happened today, we have the president of the Taxpayers Protection Alliance, David William. David, welcome back.
Thank you for having me. And this was a really important day at the Supreme Court, not only for this program, but really for taxpayers, because we're talking about $400 to $500 billion worth of student aid relief that could possibly move forward. So this is critical, right, is that the Supreme Court gets this right, because this is going to be expensive.
Yeah, well,
What's your anticipation as far as what will ultimately transpire?
Well, you love listening to the Supreme Court justices, and you see the transcripts, and you get to understand kind of what they're thinking. Now, there's always a wild card in there, so you don't know exactly how they're going to rule. But when you hear things like overreach and that, this probably, the administration can't do this and it has to go through Congress or it has to be a spending bill. I mean, that's telegraphing a lot right there as to where this could potentially be going. And I read something very disturbing, is that this is a news article that said, well, Justice Clarence Thomas, should approve this because of his history, his education. And I'm thinking, wait, no, that's not what the Supreme Court is there for. If something happened to you 20 years ago and you're now a Supreme Court justice, that doesn't mean you rule based upon your opinion of what happened to you. So it's really bizarre that this article was stating that. And I think it's a stretch, right? I think they're trying to, give the other side a win here and making this rule go through.
Yeah, I saw that article, and it talked about how much student debt he had and how crushing it was for him as he was going through. He turned out okay. He ended up in the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure it actually worked the intention it had, but you're right. There's all this emotion, and it's all designed to distract us from the law, which it seems to be pretty clear from the arguments today. Justice Roberts really seemed to sum it up, which is, hey, I read in the Constitution that Congress has the power of the purse. If you're spending this much money, shouldn't have Congress gotten involved and approved it first? And the Biden administration really couldn't answer that question. The separations of power here is a very important principle for these justices, isn't it?
Yeah, it's critical. And, the Democrats actually, in the past couple of years, have said the same thing. I think it was Speaker Nancy Pelosi who said that the president can't do this. And I believe the Senator Elizabeth Warren. Now, they both have flip-flopped, of course, right? They're flip-flopping. Well, no, he does have the executive power. So they said the quiet part out loud a few years ago. Right. And I think they know deep in their hearts. I think the Democrats know deep in their hearts that this isn't going to go through. And what I find just fascinating is that you have people screaming, saying, you have people in the Supreme Court that are going to take away education from people. It's like, no. That's not what's happening. This is a deeper issue than education. This is about government overreach. It's about executive branch overreach and what the executive branch should be doing and what it shouldn't be doing.
David, the Biden administration has had a little bit of an optics issue. President Biden has always talked about how he's old Scranton Joe, and yet he hasn't been to East Palestine. And there's another area in which optics contradict his messaging in the area of taxes. He announced today that in his next budget proposal, it's going to include some higher taxes. I thought Joe Biden was for the everyman, though.
Yeah, this makes no sense. I mean, we still have a lot, inflation is really high. People are struggling. I think egg prices came down a little bit, thank God for that. But we still, and he wants to raise taxes. And what a horrible time to do this. And it doesn't make any fiscal sense, especially like you say, if you're for the little guy. Let's talk to people in Scranton. See how many people in Scranton are happy with their taxes being raised. And of course, whenever we hear about businesses, their taxes increasing, businesses don't pay taxes, consumers do. So it's going to be, sent right down to the consumer. So this is a disaster for an economy that is, quite frankly, still struggling.
Yeah, such a great point. I want to ask about the politics of making so many promises of freebies. It used to be just, we'll give cell phones away, but now we're going to take away your student loan. We're going to do it, and we always do it just before an election, which gets people excited. And then those voters find out, well, wait a second, he really couldn't do that. Wait, what do you mean? Is there an element now of where the president has used spending powers he doesn't have to lure people into a false vote?
Yeah, and we saw that with the Inflation Reduction Act with green energy, is that, this false hope of green energy, hundreds of billions of dollars in subsidies. And what we're doing is creating more cylindras. If people, remember that, the cylinder of the good old days. And it's 2023. Just wait until next year, John and Amanda. It's going to be an election year, and we're going to see a lot of promises coming out of the White House because they want to keep that office. And whether Joe Biden runs or not, they want to, use our tax dollars to bribe people. I mean, this is what it is using our tax dollars to bribe people to vote for them. So, as the Carpenter said, we've only just begun.
Yeah. Oh, that's not a fun thought. I wanted to ask you, yes, we have an election year next year, but in 6 weeks we have tax day. And I know that we've talked to you in the past about some of these new tax provisions that the IRS has inserted in there before. I guess that was last year. We were concerned about the Venmo issue with any transfers over $600, and then it was that maybe that was taken out or that was repealed. What is the status of that, and are there any other provisions that taxpayers need to be aware of or have their antenna up about going into tax day?
The thing that scares me the most is the IRS wants to prepare our taxes. They want to be tax preparation. Now think about that. We have to send all of our sensitive financial information to the IRS. So last year in the Inflation Reduction Act, $15 million was appropriated to do a study for the IRS to determine whether they should do this or not. Now, the group that got this is a far left group, the group doing this study. Now, they have already been on record saying the IRS should prepare taxes. So this is like the show Jeopardy, is that you have the answer, and now the administration is just looking for the question because they know what they want to do, and they found a group. They're going to pay them upwards of $15 million to say, yes, the IRS should prepare taxes. Remember, guys, that 2 years ago, there was this leak of sensitive tax information. We still don't know who inside the IRS did that. There's been really, Lois Lerner a decade ago was denying groups their 501c3 status. So the IRS is a problem, and this $80 billion is not going to solve their problems, but the tax preparation. And John and Amanda, do you really think that they're going to give you the biggest tax refund that they can if they're preparing your taxes? Are they going to work in your interest?
It's almost as if the IRS doesn't operate on the up and up. Gosh, shocking. David, you have so many great insights on all of these issues, on how these federal programs impact taxpayers. Thank you so much for joining us tonight and sharing your thoughts. We'll have you back on very soon.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, we've got to take a quick commercial break, but when we get back, John and I will have a quick discussion to wrap things up and go over the discussions that we had. Remember, we're going to be reporting live from CPAC the end of this week. We hope that you will tune in. We've got Real America's Voice coverage from top to bottom all throughout that incredible conference, so stay tuned for that, and we'll be right back after these messages.